How's it going, everyone? It's Milwaukee coming back at you once again, and today we're going to be discussing Justice League, The Villain's Journey by Jeff Johns with art mostly by Jim Lee. Let's get into it. We start off with issue 7, where Congress is demanding of Steve Trevor that the Justice League take on a new member. In issue 8, after auditioning to become the newest member of the Justice League, Steve Trevor makes Green Arrow an offer. Issue 9 sees the Justice League splitting up and dealing with 2 prison riots. In issue 10, we get the origin of the new villain known as Graves. In issue 11, the Justice League track down Graves. The final issue, while Graves may be defeated, has he succeeded in dismantling the Justice League? Gonna have to read to find out. This volume was very Steve Trevor heavy. It starts off with him as he is the leader of Argus, and he's the liaison between the U.S. government and the Justice League. Congress are demanding of him that they want to put a new member on the Justice League so that it can be like a plant or like a mole, so that Congress can have a say in what the Justice League does. Because as it stands, the Justice League, they're like gods on Earth, and they're just doing whatever they want. And of course, the U.S. government wants control. So they're putting pressure on Steve Trevor to get a new member of the League. And of course, the League, they're not having it. But that's not the only reason why this volume is so Steve Trevor heavy, as we'll continue to discuss. I always knew that Steve Trevor played a big role in like Wonder Woman's backstory. I don't know if you want to call it her origin or whatever. But with the New 52, I didn't know if they were going to, keep that in here. Well, it turns out they did. Steve Trevor was the first man that Wonder Woman ever saw. They had a relationship, and it was very public, and they had a very public breakup. And Steve Trevor is, like, mocked by, like, TMZ in this universe because he's the guy that got dumped by Wonder Woman. And we see throughout the volume that Steve is really, broken up about the relationship. He hasn't taken it well. And as the liaison to the Justice League, he still has to interact, routinely with Wonder Woman. And it's really bothering Steve. If that's really bothering Steve, then he's going to be really bothered by the fact that Wonder Woman has a new relationship, as we saw on the cover of issue 12 of this volume. It's that big reveal, right? Superman and Wonder Woman in the New 52. They're an item. And I don't see how Steve is going to be taking that very well, considering he's already, pretty down bad about his breakup with Wonder Woman as it was. But I suppose if you have to get cucked by somebody, might as well be Superman, right? Of course, this is all leading us into the future of the Justice League, because we see here that while Congress wants a new members on the Justice League, they're not getting it. So Steve Trevor makes an offer to the character Green Arrow, who wanted to be on the Justice League. And we see a preview for the upcoming years and issues of the Justice League, where we get a new Justice League of America team that has Green Arrow and Steve Trevor on there. So looking forward to seeing where that goes with these two Justice League teams. And all the hurt feelings in between creates muddy waters, and that makes for some interesting reading. Maybe. Stuff I didn't care for about this volume. We got, once again, more infighting amongst the team members. Green Lantern acting as immature as ever. But at least, Jeff Johns gave an explanation for why Hal acts the way he does when he's on the Justice League. And the explanation is basically this. Hal deals with such serious stuff out in space that he looks at his time on the Justice League as his time to relax and kick back and have fun, even though they're dealing with like world-ending threats, right? So at least it gave an explanation for why Hal is totally different in the Justice League book versus his own book. It's not the best explanation, but you know what? I guess I'll allow it. Speaking of Hal Jordan, right? He quits the team in the book. He's going to be the fall guy. He's going to be the scapegoat, and we'll see what happens with that going forward, but whatever. This volume also mentions the existence of the Justice League International. I was wondering, since the Justice League isn't controlled by the government, they don't want new team members. What's the deal with this JLI book that, I got on my list to read here that I'm dreading reading because it just seems so random? Well, it turns out the Justice League, they don't like the Justice League International, and they tell Steve Trevor to tell the JLI to get the hell out of here and quit using their name. So Maybe that little tidbit here is going to make reading the Justice League International a little bit better, but I doubt it. I also learned that Green Arrow and Aquaman have a little bit of a beef going on. And with the next volume of Justice League being Aquaman focused, and the JLA springing up, we'll see what happens with all that, right? As far as the main villain of this volume is concerned, right? Sure, it's a huge step back from Darkseid in the previous volume. But, Graves was there when the Darkseid battle was going on, and that's why he's in the condition that he's in, as we learn in this volume. As far as villains go, this guy actually wrote the book on the Justice League, right? He's an author, suffers, grave fucking medical condition that leaves him and his family, in a critical condition, so he takes revenge on the Justice League because he blames them. But he, like I said, he wrote the book on them, so he knows a lot about them. He's the one guy who knows the most about them in the world or whatever. So he uses what he knows, his knowledge, against them. And he is able to piece together that they've all suffered great loss, except for one team member. And that's why he's so hell-bent on killing Steve Trevor throughout this volume, so that Wonder Woman could experience that great loss that they've all experienced. Overall, I thought the villain was kind of weak, but it was, a good way to bring all the characters together, like expose their weaknesses. I don't know if Graves will ever be used again going forward, but he does get a visit from Amanda Waller, because she wants to know how she could take down the Justice League in the future. So they leave it open. We'll see what happens. So with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and give Justice League, The Villain's Journey, a 3 out of 5. It was nice to see the Justice League in the current timeline, considering the previous volume was a flashback origin story. Was to see that the Justice League in the 5 years haven't really, grown together as a team. They're still having like this childish infighting. They don't really seem to be taking things seriously. Why should you, right? Anyway, 3 out of 5. Until next time, I'll see you there.